Welcome to the WMAR Vault. I'm Jamie Costello. Here at WMAR, we're celebrating 75 years on the air. We were the first TV station in Maryland, and now we're setting our sights on the future and streaming. So we're going to be mixing up the old and the new, opening up the WMAR Vault and dusting off 16 million feet of archive footage. That's enough to get us from Baltimore to Los Angeles and still have nearly 400 miles left over. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the WMAR Vault.
I am having a bad nail day.
Oops, she said it. The Good Hands people are at work designing good hands. We've come a long way since Madge dipping our tips in Palmolive.
I would say having your nails pierced. I have my nail pierced. I have a ring and a nail stone, and that's the newest thing.
And for that, and for flowers on your fingers, and for a nice massage, here's a tip. The Final Touch is one of the best nail salons, not in Carroll County, not in the state, but in the country.
It's just something I enjoy doing. It makes you feel pretty and it makes you feel special. It just feels good, and I think it makes you look nice.
Carolyn is one of 540 customers that come all the way to Eldersburg to meet their manicurist. No. They are called nail technicians.
I think women are very much into now the total look. You know, they care about their hair, their face, their figures. They're into a lot of physical fitness, and nails is just part of good grooming.
So put your fingers close to the tube this morning, relax, and here goes. Stop the music. This just in. Correct me if I'm wrong, but is that a foot?
It is.
Then dust that toe.
This is what all the excitement is all about. The New Kids on the Block hit the pop charts in early 1988, and ever since their popularity has been growing like crazy. This is their first time in Baltimore, and B104 Radio has been bombarded with phone calls for concert tickets. Program director Steve Perrin says he's never seen anything like it before.
The volume of calls we're getting for this thing is quite, I mean, it's massive. It's, you know, it's many times what a normal reaction is for, let's say, Madonna or Michael Jackson. It's bigger than that.
Part of the appeal of New Kids on the Block seems to be their clean-cut image. They've performed various anti-drug concerts, and that's something parents seem to like. All's quiet right now here at the arena, but come tonight, this place is going to be filled with thousands of screaming teenagers, and for many of them, this will be their very first concert. But the parents can feel a little bit safer about bringing their kids. The arena has set up a special room called the Quiet Room.
It's really a space that's available for parents to come because the children are so young, so rather than dropping them off in downtown Baltimore and not being able to come pick them up for another 2.5 hours, it's really a place for the parents to wait for the children. It is free. There are refreshments there that are available. Magazines, television.
Gene Marcus of Ferndale is a man on the go these days. He used to operate a Glen Burnie nursery called Evergreen Jeans. Now he has come out of retirement to become a television photographer. You can spot him cruising around northern Anne Arundel County in what he calls his TV1 van. On the scene, it says on the side of his truck, a slogan that somehow seems vaguely familiar. No, Evergreen Gene is not a new competitor in the local news field, but at first glance, it's easy to be fooled.
Does anyone ever mistake you for a news photographer coming down the street, TV1 on the scene?
People do stop and ask me, hey, where are you going? And I said, oh, we do parties and weddings and, of course, anything anyone would want. And I'm just doing it for the kicks. I really want something to do.
Gene Marcus is able to do it for kicks and for money because of the home video revolution. Lots of people now have videotape recorders in their homes and businesses, and television cameras and portable recorders are within reach of those with modest incomes.
This is Gene Marcus from TV1, associated with United Properties. The home you are now viewing is located in the Allwood community.
Today, Evergreen Gene was out photographing a house for a real estate firm that is experimenting with videotape to help buyers find what they want. But Marcus's principal business is weddings. Marcus recently shot the wedding of two Maryland State troopers, Susan Topper and Dominic Belsoma. They met while working as bodyguards for former Governor Blair Lee and later Lieutenant Governor Sam Bogley. That's Blair Lee dancing cheek to cheek with the Lieutenant Governor's wife, Rita. Evergreen Jean's photography is not much better than home movies with sound, but the real appeal is that you can see yourself on television.
Watching the tape of our wedding is just like being there again in person. Almost like being maybe a mini movie star. You can watch yourself on your own television set. It's really fun.
The experts say that most of us will have videotape recorders in our homes before too long, and many of us will have our own TV cameras and produce our own shows. Evergreen Gene is just a man ahead of his time.
This is Gene Marcus, TV1, at the Allwood Community.
And this is Patrick McGrath, on the scene with Evergreen Gene.
Was it under control? Bradley asked again.
The NSA apparently was getting...
Edith Barker is one of the voices that provides vision via radio for Jeanette Stabb and many others who are blind or almost sightless. The book being read is one of two books read in part every day. They are recorded on tape, and most are bestsellers, such as Hunt for Red October. They are taped and replayed by the Baltimore Radio Reading Service, 7 days a week, 5,000 hours a year. Daily and weekly newspapers and current magazines are also read every day, including advertising. Listeners need a special radio receiver to hear the broadcasts, and for the needy, they're free. Karen Meadow, director of the Reading Service, says anyone who needs a receiver gets one.
Anyone who is blind or print handicapped, and by that we mean people who have a visual impairment or people who may have a physical impairment due to perhaps a stroke or a disease like multiple sclerosis or muscular dystrophy, people who are dyslexic, people who have had traumas like an accident and for some reason can't hold a paper or can't get their eyes to work properly or their brains to take in what they're reading.
Bob Lewis, who is blind, is the production manager, conducting all the recording and broadcasting.
Well, I love my job. I don't even think of my handicap. As a matter of fact, at times I don't even think I have a handicap. Most people hold things up to me and say, "Did you see that?" When really, they just don't even think of my blindness.
A voice-activated clock helps Lewis time the tapings of the volunteers.
Time is up.
For listeners such as Jeanette Stabb of Edgemere, it is a vital window on the world.
It's like having my family come in and sit with me at the table while I eat breakfast and read the paper to me.
And for the volunteer readers, it is also important.
I'm doing it because the feedback that I get from the readers indicates that there's much enjoyment on their parts, and that makes it very satisfying to me.
More volunteer readers are always needed, and so are donations. If you would like to donate either time or money, just call 396-0990. That's 396-0990. At the Baltimore Radio Reading Service, Jack Bowden, Channel 2 News.
The baseball diamond at Memorial Stadium now sports a goalpost that will stay in place for the rest of the winter. The birds are leaving their nest. They got up early and stayed late, and they got the worm and the World Series trophy, and many of us hate to see them go. Several bird backers waited outside the stadium today, getting the autographs of Oriole players past and present as they came to pack up.
If they're going away, you won't see them for 4 or 5 months. Everybody's got their heroes.
The Orioles provided us with many heroes, and fan Lauren Overby got to know many of them by going to a lot of games.
We've really had a good time out here, though. You get to sort of know all the players. They recognize you. You get to see them. It's all right.
How many games have you been to?
I've been to at least 50 of them this year. I'll have to check all my ticket stubs to make sure, but I know it's more than 50.
This week, one by one, the heroes of the Oriole team will come to the locker room, fold and pack away all the wonderful memories of the '83 season. For Tito Landrum, it was a lonely job today, and after the highs of the series and yesterday's enormously successful parade, it was kind of like the day after Christmas.
Well, that's a good way to put it, a day after Christmas. It is kind of sad. You look around the locker room, the empty lockers right now. You remember all the jubilation that took part a few days ago. The guys are going their separate ways. You'll talk to a few of them over the winter, and you'll see a lot of them in spring training. But There's also a happiness that the season is over. You know, you've played X amount of games. You're going to be able to have more time spent with the families, more outings to do with the families. But deep down inside, it's kind of ironic because you can't wait till it's over, and then all of a sudden you can't wait till it starts up again.
You know that there's not going to be any more ball games for 3 or 4 months, and you've got to go all winter on just the feelings and the emotions that went through during the past season.
We'll remember. How could we forget what they did for us this year? It's hard to let them go, but they have earned the rest. But we'll miss our birds, our fine feathered friends who brought Baltimore baseball fame. It is a little lonely out here today, a bit of a downer, but I have a happy thought to leave you with, Oriole fans. Next season's opener is the earliest ever, April 2nd. I'm ready. I'm Susan Whiteboud, News Scene 2, Memorial Stadium.
You didn't call me at all. Got the beer.
You remember the commercials? For some time, it seemed like local car dealers were on top of the world. Now take a look around Bel Air Road. You'll see empty showrooms, empty signs, and grass growing where new cars once sat.
I want to stimulate demand so that people are actually coming into the showrooms and buying cars.
Senator Barbara Mikulski is proposing an amendment that would make interest payments on car loans and sales tax deductible for the next year. She says the auto industry lost over 100,000 jobs this year alone and thinks this is the best plan to help buyers and companies.
Why is that a good idea? If you buy a car, we have to make them, we have to sell them, we have to service them, and that's good for sales, suppliers, and manufacturers.
And no local business person understands this problem better than the man that owns this shop. Scott Donahue saw the writing on the wall some time ago. Scott Donahue has been in the auto industry for 34 years, but one of his dealerships is one of the now empty ones on Bel Air Road.
I think it was clear that there were storm clouds gathering on the horizon, and pretty much any astute businessman could see we were in for a problem.
Donahue is out of the dealership business, and while he agrees with Mikulski's plan, he says it's not enough to save the ailing car business.
Your buyers today are essentially what we would call need buyers. They need to buy a car. They've totaled their car died. Unfortunately, over 50% of those can't get a loan for a car today.
Senator Mikulski presents her plan to Congress next week. In Baltimore, I'm Brittany Gordon, ABC 2 News.
In a morning press conference here in Baltimore, Congressman Parren Mitchell says he's been informed that state selective service officials have terminated the experimental pilot program. That action apparently was prompted after a congressional and White House investigation which found that selective service deputies were violating a 1980 presidential order requiring that draft registration must take place only at U.S. post offices by authorized postal personnel.
Based on the correspondence that we got from the White House, apparently this was an initiative taken by the selective service system itself. The White House takes the position, Ken Duberstein, who is the assistant to the president, advises that it is an independent agency, and they advised the White House that they had undertaken this project. Insofar as I can determine, this one has been, this particular approach was limited just to Maryland. This does not mean that in other states there are not attempts being made to use the schools, as is true in Maryland and other points. It was brought to my attention by Fran that there is or soon will be an attempt in Colorado to use the public schools to register.
But Congressman Mitchell says terminating the project doesn't end the controversy. He and other congressional leaders are pushing for passage of a bill that would end future programs such as the one in Maryland. In the meantime, those people who did register at sites other than the post office are asked to contact the Selective Service Office to make their registration legal. Uma Pemaraju, News Scene 2.
Well, I'm happy that we're moving in the right direction. What we wanted as council people is we wanted some specifics.
What council members wanted to hear was the progress of community policing, which was first announced as a new crime-fighting tool 2 years ago. What they heard tonight was a pilot project has begun in the Eastern District, Major Alvin Winkler's district, and the first reports are good. The whole idea is to put an officer in the neighborhood on foot and keep him there. not just as a deterrent, but to sort out problems, including non-emergencies. Just yesterday, we saw community policing in action, getting something done about a vacant lot in a day instead of a week. Tonight, the police commissioner asked for patience, and a community policing consultant said Baltimore was moving ahead of the rest of the country.
The process in Baltimore is indeed one that is sound, and yet one that is frustrating, probably for many folks in the community, because folks on the streets of the city and in the neighborhoods want community policing to be here today, not tomorrow.
Marshall Morrell can't wait to see the concept in his neighborhood in West Baltimore.
I think it's wonderful that we'll have police officers in our neighborhood who will be able to get things done pretty much on their own, or have the channels to begin the process to have things taken care of.
In the beginning, Councilman Bell passed around a picture he said he took just down the street from his house of a problem street corner. In the end, he still had some questions, but a few more answers, especially to the question, when? Brad Ganson, News Channel 2 Nightside, City Hall.
There are some who would say it is always a zoo down here. Today, they would be partially right. It has become an annual custom for the Baltimore Zoo to bring a menagerie to Annapolis when their budget is up for review. Zoo officials were here today asking for $2.5 million for construction of an African watering hole. They didn't bring any elephants, but for the fourth year in a row, Mick the alligator came to lobby. He's gotten pretty big since he made his first appearance before the committee. Since he and his neighbors started coming here, they've collected a total of $6 million for construction of what Zoo Director Brian Rutledge says will be the best children's zoo in the country.
We're talking about now is the construction of a very important part of the zoo, which is the African watering hole. As most of you know, the water hole is the center of African plains life.
As Mick and the others made their way back to their cages, they got the news that the administration, that Governor Schaefer also supports the zoo construction to the tune of $1,750,000.
We talk about getting involved in your story. Actually, this is the fourth year that the Baltimore Zoo has brought these animals down here, and they've been more successful than most people who have come to budget and tax in getting money from the state. Phase 1 of the Children's Zoo is completed now and will be open to the public on May 8th. In Annapolis, Lou Davis, Channel 2 News. The troops were brought to Normandy by a convoy of hundreds of ships, and then were brought to the beaches by Navy landing craft. Shortly after the beach was secured by the Navy, Seabees came ashore to build bridges and roads. Among them, Heinz Lenz, who until this summer has for years led the incoming plebes in early morning calisthenics. Although he's now in his late 60s, he has prided himself on keeping up with the best of them. Lieutenant Commander Lenz came to this country at the age of 12 from Germany and ended up fighting Germany during World War II at Normandy.
At night we would lie there and we could, shrapnel would fall around us, and sometimes there was machine gun fire and we lost some people. We lived on Omaha Beach for about 9 or 10 days. Our living conditions were as follows. Trenches were dug and 2 of us slept in one trench, one facing forward, one aft. We had a cover over us and we lived on K rations and C rations. We had no fresh water.
Lenz went on to make a career of the Navy and has been teaching at the Academy for the past 12 years. He retires officially today. Lou Davis, News Channel 2 at the Naval Academy.
Carrie Bowers looks like everybody's ideal grandmother, but 50 years ago, she was part of the war machine.
Working for victory,
Like a lot of other women in Baltimore, Carrie went to work making airplanes in what had been the General Motors auto assembly plant on Browning Highway. She really was a riveter, and there really was a national consensus about the war.
And nobody liked it, and they didn't want to see their children go there either, you know, the boys. And they were always hoping that the war would be over so that they could come home.
But first, there was a job to be done and a war to be won, and for 8 hours a day, Carrie, who is now 78, stood on her feet and drove rivets into Navy fighters.
And you had to be very careful to get that there rivet in that, to hold, you know, and it had to be in there just so. And that was a job hammering all day, too, you know.
What part of the plane did you work on?
The fuselage. That's the part that goes on the big body of the plane, you know.
Ms. Bowers made about 40 cents an hour for her work. She was glad to serve, but never saw a future on the assembly line. When it was over, did you want to keep
the job? No, no. I was just glad it was over that they could come home, you know.
Women helped make those planes. Did it ever occur to you that women should fly them and fight in the war?
Well, I don't know. I never thought about it myself. Everybody tried to put in everything that they had to try to get the war over.
For 75 years, WMAR has brought the news into your home. From film to video to tiny digital cards, over-the-air, cable, satellite, and now streaming. And we'll keep moving forward. And remember to look back at the stories and the moments that made us all here in Maryland. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the WMAR Vault. We will see you next time.
This is the moment I've been waiting for. The police officer with the baby.
Hey, it's Jamie Costello. If you just enjoyed this episode of The Vault, you can check out more episodes by clicking on this box down here. And while you're at it, go ahead and hit that circle, and that'll subscribe you to WMAR2 News for great content every single day.